racially Afro-Indigenous. So, uh,
And I think
yeah,
that's where I felt like it was this pseudoscience type of thing coming up, for me at least, because that's like, yeah, that's where I was confused. Because I'm like, well, are you saying phenotype is, I don't know. That's, yeah, I just got confused at that point.
yeah. So Simba, I'm not going to tell you that you're right or wrong. What I am going to tell you is that they claimed to be phenotypically white. However, racially they are Afro-Indigenous. I am
Or ethnically, I
anything
think.
but white. What was
Yeah.
that? What was that, Cap?
I think ethnically they said Afro-Indigenous, but
Nope. They
No, they
said
isn't
said
that,
racially.
they
they
said
said
race,
racially? Oh, wow. Okay.
and uh, but I think that that actually proves the point that it's more so perception, how you are perceived, and then they went into the different ways in which they are perceived, not necessarily about how they present. It's about how they are perceived. And I said, I perceive you as white, right? But you're saying in your experience, when you are around other Afro Indigenous people, that they perceive you as Afro Indigenous. Whereas I'm looking at you, your thumbnail right there, I perceive you as white. So thereby, I and the system would treat you as white until you open up your mouth and or get around other Afro-Indigenous people to perceive you as otherwise, you know? So, yeah, strange.
Hey, Nuggets.
Yeah.
So, would it be okay to follow you and take some tutoring from you?
I can give you pointers and point you in the direction of the deconstruction therapy that you were talking about in the
Yeah,
you'd like. Yeah, sure.
thank you.
And for everyone just joining the live, this conversation is examining the concept of whiteness as a social, political, and historical construction. Who became white and why is the secondary question there. Whiteness being again, social, political, and historical construction, not necessarily synonymous with white people. Like the word whiteness and white people, I don't take as synonymous. So just clarifying that for anyone in the chat.
Simba, I'll answer your question. Whiteness, inseparable from white, would be the behaviors and actions that support, uphold, and maintain white supremacy and its ideology.
Would you say like stereotypes fit in with that as well, Nuggets? Like stereotypes that maintain whiteness as um, a, I guess, social construct, but stereotypes that inform the maintenance of structural advantages as well.
Yeah, sure. You but understand that you cannot have one without the other. Like these two things are inseparable. Um, like white and whiteness are synonymous. They were birthed, like the idea of white is whiteness and everything therein. So behaviors, ideology, attitudes, actions, all of those things. So everything that is white or is considered to categorize that is whiteness, if that makes sense.
Hi, Yomi, you're back. You're back up on the panel.
Yeah, sorry, my
Um,
fiance gave me a call, so I was like, let me be
no
right back.
worries. Hmm. Yeah, we were just still kind of talking about what you had said, phenotypically presenting as white, yet racially identify as Afro-Indigenous. Um, can you is that still a claim that you're maintaining?
That I'm, well, like like for me, like I always just identify by my ethnic groups, and then but then I always preface that, like, obviously I acknowledge that because of my phenotype that I benefit from white supremacy in society, right? Because I'm going to be treated differently than other people within my ethnic group who look differently than me, right? So
I don't understand why you keep saying phenotype. I like because of how you are perceived.
yeah, by how I'm perceived. Like I'm going to be profiled differently by a police officer than like my sister or my cousin is.
That's a
So
fake.
then wouldn't it just be like racial? So then, like, racially you're white, and then
Also, you said willing. I'm willing to be. Davina, did I hear that wrong?
What was that? That
I don't know if I
You,
heard
you,
willing, but
you said I'm willing to be profiled differently.
no, I'm said I'm going to be profiled differently. I didn't say willing. No, I'm saying like if I'm pulled over by an officer, I'm going to be treated differently than a relative of mine is.
I don't know what this is called, but okay. Walk with me just for a second. This is outside of you, Omi, but there has like this has to be whichever infographic you look at, number 15 or number 18, 19, 20 of like pillars of white supremacy, where the number one thing that we go to when it comes to being racially identified, that we grab what would happen if we get pulled over by the police. Like, I don't know how to succinctly say that, but it's getting to be like beyond racism with that one. But okay.
Well, again, these are just like the colloquialisms that people go to all the time, right? And that's why I was talking about being in dialogue with these things, because it's like if we're going to like deconstruct white supremacy, we have to talk about the instances in which people address, like socially, like these social problems. And like one of the biggest social problems when it comes to white supremacy, especially in the United States, is the construction and weaponization of capital punishment against Black and Indigenous communities and like other people of color. And so like this is why this is like the canonical like go to sort of analogy, because that's something that unfortunately, state sanctioned violence against BIPOC people is something that happens every day. And so that's why a lot of people will be like, oh, well, if you're this, like, how are you going to be treated? Because it really sort of dispels or it is disillusioned by like any self-identifying, mental gymnastics that somebody might have. I guess like the put it plainly, you have to respond to the actual material conditions, right?
So I think there's several things wrong with this conversation. Number one, the word phenotype. Number two, talking about race and racism in an American centric kind of way. It's too Americanized at this point because, number one, race and racism is not even an American concept. Did we take and do something with it a lot more violently different than some other places? Sure. Maybe, but in terms of how this conversation is being had from an Americanized point of view, when this is a global issue, I think is also wrong. Number three, I think I'm on the word BIPOC, as if the experience of the IPOC is the same as the B. Because if we're just going to cram all people who are oppressed into one term, why don't we throw white women in there? Does anybody have a problem with that?
Well, white women aren't a part of the global south, though. So, like, it's important to acknowledge how people and ecological systems of the global south are intrinsically, extorted, dehumanized, commodified, and etc.
I I I don't think that we're I don't know. I feel like this is jumping. Like I'm just we
I
are
was about to
like
say,
acknowledging now that racially you're like because in this conversation like coming because I wasn't here from the beginning, so just saying coming from my perspective when I entered the conversation and this topic being about whiteness, um like I'm just making sure that we're on the same page as far as like what race is, because at this point I'm like, are you saying that you're racially white or are you saying that you're not racially white?
I mean, I'm saying that I'm racially white, but that I come from a different ethnic background, and that like how I'm perceived is different than like how I would identify.
so now you're, hold on, because earlier you said I am phenotypically white, however, I am racially Afro Indigenous. So, like, what?
Well, I'm saying like I said before is like I like because we were just talking about how people perceive us is different than how we may perceive ourselves or people in our own communities perceive us, and I'm just saying that outside of my community, I'm going to be perceived as white, and so like I'm trying to be like faithful to like the actual sociological like phenomena that's occurring and not just like how I self-identify in like this sort of like postmodernist sense, right?
So again, I think still conflating genotype, phenotype, and social interpretation or race, like how society categorizes you, how institutions classify you, how other people respond to you. That's what race is, um, from my perspective. And so, like seeing your profile picture, for example, like I would racially identify you as white. Um, I don't know your ancestral background, but that's not what race is about.
Well,
It's
it's
kind
not.
of like,
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Race isn't well, race, but I would say there is a component of race that is ancestral because how race was constructed also has some dialogue with hypodescent, and then with the
So you are saying race is
no,
biological?
I'm not saying it's biological, but what I'm saying is that there is an ancestral component because when we're talking about oppression of different racial categorical groups today, we also have to be in conversation with how colonialism historically impacts these communities as well as the contemporary issues. Because it's not just like I hate when both things happen, right? When talking to like a racist white person about reparations, like one thing that happens is that they want to hyperfixate on like a historic event.
okay,
uh,
let's keep it focused on whiteness.
well, no,
And
I'm talking about
yeah,
the whiteness phenomenon and how they respond to this topic, and what I'm saying is that they either focus purely on the historical or they do the other conflation and they only focus on the present moment, and both of those do a disservice to what's actually occurring socially,
So
right?
real quick, before you, I want you to finish. I do. But you just now identified racially as white, so instead of saying they, say we. Go ahead.
Well, like for me, I personally, I always identify myself as Chumash and Yoruba, and so like
Okay,
But
but
I
moments
don't, and
ago,
white
racially, we're
people
talking about
aren't.
racially.
I hear you. But Omi, I can only go off of what you said. You originally said I phenotypically present as white. However, racially, I am Afro Indigenous. But moments ago, when Davina asked you, you identified as racially white. So, this is, I'm not gonna lie, Omi, this is getting, it's been weird actually. It's really getting weird. So what is your
But see, this
race?
goes,
Go with that.
but see, this literally goes to the point that I was making before I had my phone call, was that white people never have to code switch for anybody. Like, you'll never have to do that. You
Okay,
don't know what that experience
please
is.
stop othering yourself, Omi, at this
Code
point.
No,
code
you and I
right.
are not the same inherently. Like, you don't have the same experience I have, and that's why.
No,
Well, I
there
know
is
because
no
you're a
such
white
thing.
man in society and I'm a white
There's
woman in society. So there is a difference. I understand that. But like uh, the experience is different. However, within the greater society, there's the privilege. You said that you are racially white, right?
And
Yeah,
with that, hold on.
that I'm
And with
perceived.
that,
Yeah.
even between Davina and I, as you know, as a white woman, Davina and I also have a very different experience as women. So there's no monolithic experience in that. So I'm not entirely sure what it is. So I tell you what, I'm going to etch a sketch everything you've said up until this point. What is your race? And then I want you to continue the conversation that you were just having with the phenomenon of whiteness. So what is your race? And then please continue.
Yeah, I'm Afro-Indigenous. And so on what I was saying is that, like, sorry, on what was the most recent point that you would wanted me to respond to, Nugget?
You were talking about the phenomenon of whiteness with the hyperfixation on
Oh, the historic. It's either a hyperfixation on the historical, or it's ahistorical and only focuses on the contemporary issues and doesn't address like the historical issues at all. And what I was saying is that, like, that race as it's constructed has socially, in order to fully address like that oppression and what is systemic